Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Grow Grow podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is one of my regular contributors, Nigel. How's it going, Nigel?
Not too bad, Kyle. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're obviously very happy and delighted to get 3 points. It's all about getting results now at United. Performances, good performances, been few and far between this season. And it's all about just trying to get into that fourth spot if you possibly can. And it was crucial that we beat Tottenham yesterday. It wasn't a great performance as usual, but Ronaldo really got us out of jail with his second hat trick for United. 14 years between his first hat trick for United and his second. His first one was against Newcastle on the 12th of January 2008. It's also his 59th career hat trick. Um, so, what did you make of United's performance on Ronaldo yesterday?
Well, I think the performance, as you say, it's all about results, and the result was a positive one. So many times recently, listening to your podcast, there's been no wins, maybe mediocre draws, but it's Ronaldo's day. A 37-year-old to get a hat trick and his 59th hat trick is just outstanding. It's a tribute to the man, how fit he keeps himself. And he played to the crowd because he was really on his game, and it would have been a privilege to attend that game, I would have thought.
Oh yeah, there's not been many home games that the fans would have been delighted to be there this season, but that was certainly one of them. He played like he had a point to prove. He'd been receiving criticism for his lack of goals lately, but also the fact that he was back in Portugal during the Manchester City defeat. But he's came back this week, and he was back to the vintage Ronaldo that we all know, despite the fact that he's 37. We just want to see him kind of produce this kind of more often. And we know that he's Mr. Champions League, so we're expecting a similar performance on Tuesday night, aren't we?
Oh, without a doubt, he's at the peak of his game when he's scoring goals, and when he gets a hat trick, he gets fired up. You could see it in his face and his interaction with the crowd, which was lovely to see. So yeah, he knows this is our biggest game of the season on Tuesday night. So hopefully he's playing at the same levels and can score a few goals.
Okay, n- not the greatest performance. Uh, as Antonio Conte alluded to, it was just all down to if United didn't have Ronaldo, they wouldn't have won the game. And it was it's just as well that we signed him in the summer. He's the reason why we're still in the Champions League and why we're winning games like this in the league. Um, what did you make of Fred? Fred has received a lot of praise from many of his supporters for performance yesterday. We've seen Fred put in this type of performance before when he plays further up the pitch, as he does for Brazil, but it just doesn't happen often enough. The problem is he's very inconsistent, and that kind of just really summarizes the team, really, because the team are very inconsistent, and he's part of that. So I'm not getting too carried away with Fred playing a really good game against Tottenham because he very rarely backs it up with another good game. What do you think?
Well, that's true. Though it's interesting that in yesterday's lineup there was no Bruno, and he got more no McTominay either. So it was a different sort of role I noticed for Fred yesterday. Credit where credit's due. I mean, I'm the greatest critic of the guy. He just isn't at the level we require. But the first goal, the flick with his right foot, and remember he's primarily left footed and does everything with the left foot, was lovely, sheer class. It give Ronaldo time to kill the ball, look up and see exactly where he wanted to plant the goal into the corner, the right hand corner. So uh, he was better as touches. I mean, we're used to his mistakes, but everybody says he's got this endeavour, but that's not enough. But certainly last night, I have to give him credit for a good performance.
Yeah, it was a nice weekend, a Brazilian flick for Ronaldo's long range goal. Varane stepped out of defence to play it into Fred, and Fred flicked it onto Ronaldo, and Ronaldo pinged it into the top corner. And we want to see more goals like that and more contributions from Fred, like that. He just does not suit playing in a deep role. Uh, he's more suited to playing further up the pitch, and he certainly outperformed Pogba yesterday. My worst fears about Pogba in the last 6 months of the season are being realised. He doesn't want to get injured, so he's not gonna put himself in where it hurts. He's gonna pull out of challenges. He's gonna put in some lazy displays because the only thing one thing that's on his mind is Real Madrid, PSG, Juventus. If he has a cruciate knee ligament injury, they're not going to sign him on a free transfer and give him a massive signing on fee. So he's just in a lot of games. You're just seeing him kind of protecting himself, aren't you?
Yeah, he Pogba only thinks about Pogba, as you say, it's his long term future. The next couple of months, he'll have the agent looking here, there, and everywhere. But it's robbing the fans. He gets paid a massive salary, Kyle, 290,000 a week. And yesterday, he a couple of occasions he wouldn't compete with his latest hairstyle, leading head the ball because he thought he might come down and hurt his ankle or something. I mean, he's so obviously selfish and not a team player. I have no sympathy for him at all when he leaves. It's been 5 years wasted in effect. His goal ratio, what is it, 38 goals in 5 games in 5 years? Just not good enough. And he's lived on this World Cup winner bit for far too many years. Now we're sick of hearing it.
Yeah, and he's had long spells out through injury. He tends to go a year without scoring a goal. That's happened a couple of times. We're going to be relying on him though on Tuesday, I think, because I think Bruno Fernandes has coronavirus and he had to watch the game from home yesterday. So that effectively rules him out of the game on Tuesday. So we're going to need a big performance from Pogba on Tuesday night because we know how well Atletico played in the first leg and we're unlucky to draw one each. Pogba wasn't very good in that game. Not many United players were. If It's hard to see us getting out of jail a second time. We're going to need a pretty big performance in this home leg. Otherwise, we're going to go out and we need a big game from Pogba too.
Oh, I think so. I imagine McTominay, who was rested really yesterday because of his calf strain, will come in for Matic. But with Bruno not there yet, the midfield needs a big game from Pogba, and he has to be interested from minute one and not faffing about and strolling around as if it's a five-a-side. This is our biggest game of the season, and he should be told that, and he should know it anyway, because if we're going to finish sixth, seventh, or eighth in the Premier League, it would be least good to say that we got to the last eight in the Champions League, and that's what we want. We want another game and another 2 games in Europe after Tuesday night.
Yeah, and he should want to perform, on the biggest stage. But we just never know what you're going to get from him. So what Jadon Sancho just seems to be going from strength to strength. He played really well yesterday. He was a lovely ball from Matic over the top. For Who played Sancho in, and then he played a lovely ball across to Ronaldo for the top end. So he's getting plenty of goals and assists now, and this is what we expected to see. Obviously, it took him a bit of time to settle in, even though he was English. He had never played in the Premier League before. He had played most of his senior football in the Bundesliga, but now we're starting to see the best of him, and long may it continue.
Oh, I loved his performance yesterday. Very exciting now. He nutmegged a guy in the middle of the park. He was showing good feet and good balance and going inside and outside. The goal you referred to, the second goal, that lovely ball from Matic, what Sancho did was there, he crossed it immediately to Ronaldo, who buried it. He didn't take the touch. When he first came to the club, he was trying to settle himself in the side, didn't know his teammates. But when you see the confidence of that, he looked up, didn't hesitate, crossed it. It was so quick they couldn't react to that, and Ronaldo buried it. But it's lovely to watch. I've always said that if Sancho was the player that we hoped he would be, he would create many chances and goals for someone as good as Ronaldo and perhaps Cavani with good service. And if that's what's coming for the rest of the season, hopefully we can win most of the games, which we need to do.
Yeah, I think Sancho and Ronaldo are both going to be crucial on Tuesday night and for the rest of the season if we're going to pick up results. Um, no real improvement from Marcus Rashford, I'm afraid. Very lucky to start that game. He's starting to make noises that he's thinking of leaving the club because he's not starting many games. Well, he's not starting because he's not playing well. Um, and again, he didn't do anything yesterday, to change the supporters' minds about that. Um, I'm of the opinion that I wouldn't be too sorry if you want to see him go. If he wants to leave, then just let him go.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Yeah, I think there's voices among the fans that say because he's a Manchester lad and because he's been there since he was 7 or 8 years old, that he should be given further chances. But I think we've seen the best of Marcus Rashford. I think for his own career, he would be better if he left. and certainly if he wants to play where Sancho's playing, and Sancho is the future of this club, then I'd be happy to let him leave and try to get as much money for him as we could.
Yeah, I think if someone like PSG, who are obviously going to be in the market for a forward in the summer because Mbappe is going to go to Real Madrid, if they're willing to offer something like 70 million for Rashford, it'd be very, very hard for United to turn down. And I understand that he had talks with PSG before signing his latest Man United contract in 2019. So it seems to be a mutual interest there. So it's one to keep an eye on. So Harry Maguire probably had an improved performance yesterday overall, but even at that, he still managed to tuck one into his own net as Phil Jones would normally do. And I think it was normally down to the fact that he was caught flat-footed. Had he kept up with the play, he wouldn't have had to lunge at the ball like that. So he does have to take criticism for that mistake, even though some people think that it was unlucky. So he's just never going to. The criticism is never ending for Maguire at the moment, but most of it is justified. He's just the burden of being the £80 million signing for United and being United captain is too much for him. Now we've even seen one of his former teammates at Hull doing an interview with BN Sports today, saying that Harry Maguire does not have the credentials to be Man United captain. That's pretty damning from a former teammate, isn't it?
Oh, it is indeed. But I never doubted it. I didn't really see uh, how he was worth that money when he was playing for Leicester. I think Leicester saw us coming, and of course we paid top dollar an inferior player. I mean, you compare him to what Liverpool got, the value they got for Van Dijk. If you can say that 75 million is, but he's going to give them 7, 8, 9 years at the top level. Maguire simply can't read the game. He hasn't got the pace. He doesn't head the ball as well as we thought he would. He doesn't score as many goals, perhaps for England, but not for our club. No, he's definitely not a long term. The captaincy, Kyle, should be removed from him as early as possible. I would even do it this season. I wouldn't wait to the end of May.
Yeah, his former teammate Ahmed El Mohammadi said Harry was with me in Hull City, and in my opinion, he doesn't have the level to be Manchester United captain. Man United need a player with a strong personality, and I hope that the next manager will give the captaincy to Ronaldo if he stays. So that's what we've been saying for months, that for at least the remainder of the season, Ronaldo should be the captain because he probably is the natural leader in the dressing room anyway. And it's hard for someone with Maguire's stature to be telling people like Ronaldo, Cavani, and Varane, how can he captain those players given what he's achieved in the game compared to them? It's absurd, isn't it?
It doesn't make sense to me at all. It really doesn't. I mean, your captain should be a leader and a leader by example. Ronaldo's just scored a hat trick, as we've talked about. He should be the captain coming out in the pitch on Tuesday night. Maguire, to me, has lost his confidence. He certainly seems to have lost the faith of his fellow defenders because I didn't see one of them be at least sympathetic to him when he took the ball away into our net. So, changes have to be made.
Yeah, red.
Yeah, I see, Kyle. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to move on now to the the fullbacks. Oh, we wanted Tellez had to play. I don't think Shaw was available, and we wanted Dallo to come in for Wan-Bissaka. There was no choice really because Wan-Bissaka was absolutely awful in the Manchester derby. But Dallo gets a bit like Fred, he gets a lot of praise from a large section of the supporters. But I just don't think. I think he's average. He's okay, but he's just not at the level that we require. He's very hit and miss going forward and defensively as well. He was caught out for the Maguire own goal. He allowed the cross to come in too easily. So, what is your thoughts on Dallo?
I think Dallow's one of 4 fullbacks we currently have in the club who perform consistently poorly week in and week out. I mean, Tellis's major contribution yesterday was the delivery for the winning goal from Ronaldo. But you can't play a player in the first team every week on the strength of his delivery from corners. He has to know the basics of how you defend, how you get close to attacking wingers and close them down, how you protect your centre halves by not allowing the ball to come into the middle. So I think he's really, really poor. He's better than Wan-Bissaka, but there's not a lot in it.
Yeah, and Tella is there's occasions where he tries to play the ball down the line to Sancho, and he just kicks it straight into touch. He's like a rugby fly half, kicking the ball in the touch. I mean, he's a very limited player as well. And like you say, I agree with you. I don't think any of our four fullbacks are up to the standard that's required. But it's a toss up between Shaw and Tellez at left back, and I think Dallo would get my vote at right back till the end of the season. But something that definitely needs addressed in the summer. I mean, there's so many issues with the team. I don't think they're all going to be addressed in the summer. I'm afraid it's just the most urgent ones that are going to be. Um, so Nemanja Matic came back in for this game. Which effectively means that he won't play against Atletico Madrid. Hope that Scott is available for that one. Matic is probably the most natural of the kind of defensive midfielders, but he's long past his peak, and it's probably quite often when he does play, he does all right, but you can notice that he's kind of off the pace, and he does like cynical fouls because the opposition players are too quick for him. So um, he's just someone that kind of has to play sometimes, but that midfield area is so weak. Not someone that ideally you want to have in your starting 11. Very, very unlucky for Dean Henderson. You must have thought he was going to get his first Premier League start of the season because David De Gea tested positive for coronavirus, but turned out to be a false positive, and De Gea ended up playing the game anyway. So it's just summarised the way the season has went for Henderson. Like you said, you wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened to Van der Beek. It would have been typical. So do you think the goalkeeper debate is firmly over now? It's Henderson will leave and De Gea will probably continue on for a number of years. Is that how you see it as well?
I have no doubts about that. I mean, the challenge was put to De Gea, and he stepped up to the mark. He certainly had a great season this season. Henderson, it just hasn't. He got COVID at a bad time for him, and he never really recovered because he was never considered again for the first team because the form of De Gea, one of the best keepers in the Premier League, and there's not a lot of our players we can say that about in particular positions, but De Gea is certainly one of them.
Okay, we'll get on to the player ratings now. I'll call out my scores, and then you let me know what yours are. Then, so De Gea, can't really blame him for any of the goals. So we can see we could probably just go with a 6. Dallo would be a 5 for me. Varane would be a 7. Maguire a 5. I mean, he scored an own goal, even though he played better than he usually does. Tell is a 5. Matic a 6. Fred would probably be an 8. Pogba a 4. Rashford a 4. Sancho would be an 8, and then Ronaldo would probably be a 10. So, what's your scores then?
Yeah, they're nearly everyone's the same as mine, would you believe, except from Tellez. You give him a 5, I would give him a 3. All he did was take a corner. His distribution and his positioning at the back was so bad, I wouldn't give him any more than a 3. I thought he was awful, really awful.
And of course, he gave the penalty away as well, by not pulling his arm away.
Yeah.
But we were unlucky not to get a penalty for a similar situation as well. It was one where Sancho pulled it back to Ronaldo, and Ronaldo he shot first time with his left foot and it hit an arm of a Spurs defender, and the penalty wasn't given. So there's been some strange decisions in the Premier League overall this weekend again, particularly in the Chelsea game. Newcastle were denied a clear penalty, but we're at the mercy of these kind of very, very inconsistent officials, I'm afraid. So I just want to move on to talk about the managerial situation. There's been another development this week, where Thomas Tuchel has suddenly come into the frame with the troubles going on in Chelsea with the ownership. Obviously, the most obvious candidates have been Pochettino, which nobody seems to want, and Erik ten Hag, the guy who everybody wants. But suddenly Tuchel could become available in June, if the mess at Chelsea doesn't get sorted out. I don't think anyone would really object to that, given what he's achieved in the short space of time at Chelsea and what he's done elsewhere. He definitely seems to be a coach who's close to the level of Klopp and Guardiola. So would you prefer to just carry on with the plans to appoint Ten Hag, or would you maybe go for Tuchel instead if he's available?
Well, like you, I didn't know what was going to happen at Chelsea. That was a complete surprise. I would actually move for Tuchel simply on the basis he's established and has won the Champions League. He's a winner, whilst the other two haven't effectively won a major tournament. And also, I like the way he's handled Lukaku's histrionics on and off the pitch. There's quite a few in our squad that their ego is so big that they think they're better than the club. I would imagine that Tuchel would come in and sort that out fairly quickly and make the board and the and Murder etc. know exactly who he wants and what changes he wanted, and he would have the stature of a manager who haven't won major trophies that he would be listened to. I could see that he could make a change to quite a few that maybe are just coasting along, playing every week, getting big wages, and not really caring. McTominay talked about it and said really he was more interested in his own career in the club, but he didn't deny. And you get the impression that Ranić is getting quite a tough dressing room interaction with players who think they should be deciding who the next manager is. The very fact they're coming out allegedly and saying that Pochettino should be the man, that would put me off immediately. Those guys cannot get their own way. Somebody needs to go in and sort them out and get them playing for the shirt.
Yeah, there's absolutely no way those players should decide who the new coach should be. We want rid of the bulk of those players. We don't want them getting the manager they want and them sticking around for another 5 years. Um, I haven't budged much from my, last week when I said I would only keep five of those players, and that would be De Gea, Varane, Sancho, Bruno, and Alanga. Now, Ronaldo seduced me with his hat trick, and if he plays like that more often, I'd probably want him to stay another season. But largely, I haven't changed my mind. I want the vast majority of that squad to be gutted, and I want to see major changes. I want to see the new coach make at least five signings if possible, and then promote people like Garner and Ethan Laird, and see Donny van der Beek come back. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There are players out in loan that are trying to make names for themselves, and a few of them are establishing that. They haven't been provided with an opportunity yet to get any first team action at Old Trafford, and they definitely need to come back. The players you've named are, I agree completely, are the ones who you want to retain because they are obviously putting the effort in and showing their class week in and week out. It's the other ones who just turn up and don't properly address the problems on the pitch as it changes. They don't seem to have the versatility or the willingness really to get us out of the mire that we're in, needing to win every single game possibly to make the top four. So yeah, I agree with that strategy completely.
Yeah, I would as well. I want to see big changes in the summer. I don't think we're obviously we know from previous that we're not going to get rid of everybody we want to. Just Harry Maguire as an example. I can't see the board being willing to take a huge loss on him. I think it's more likely that he'll see out that contract than United sell him for a cut price in the summer. I'm not even sure who would want him. But I think certain players will probably sit there to the end of contracts. But the most crucial thing of all is not to do this, uh, repeat this silly policy of giving players new contracts who don't deserve it. No, we've seen it in the past with the likes of Phil Jones and Marcus Rojo. We as long as we stop that, then we will be making progress. We can't sell everyone that we want to sell. That is likely to be the case in the summer. We'll get rid of some people, but not all the ones that we want to see go. But it's absolutely crucial that we don't give them new deals when they don't deserve it.
Couldn't agree more. And the other thing, Kylie, is come to August and the first fixture, we want the new manager to define clearly, without any equivocation, who is the penalty taker for the club and who is the new captain to succeed Maguire. Those are two things that need to be addressed urgently by the new management team.
Yeah, and the club have been briefing off the record that they want to make an appointment before the end of the season. It could possibly even come during the next international break. If that is the case, then it's not going to be Thomas Tuchel because he's going to see out his contract or see out the season with Chelsea, it would probably more likely to be someone like Ten Hag or Pochettino. I do not want to see Pochettino come to this club for the reasons number one, because what we've seen from him at PSG is not been great. Finishing second in a one horse race. Again, they totally bottled it in the Champions League, collapsing in a tie where they were in total control of. So he hasn't done anything to arrest that kind of form from PSG, which they seem to do every single season. So that hasn't impressed me. He's never won anything. He's done reasonably well at Tottenham, but I think Ten Hag fits the profile that we want. He wins things, he promotes young players, um, and he plays football the right way. So he ticks all the boxes for me.
Without a doubt. I agree with that entirely. The Tuchel thing is a development that's happened this week. Nobody knows how that's going to work out. But I understand that the Dutch manager has been trying to do some research on the history of United. That's alleged in the press. And if it is, it's good forward thinking on his behalf, and he's trying to think ahead. Obviously, he's got his own club's immediate future. But if he wants to step up, and I understand he wants the chance to work in the Premier League, well, let's give him the chance. And you've clearly stated it. The talk about the end of April, possibly. Let it happen, let it be, and let's get on with it. He may keep the current manager beside him for a while, and that'll help him adapt to it. He'll soon be told what's going on behind the scenes, and that might help in getting rid of some of the disruptive elements that we see on the pitch week in and week out.
Yeah, well, I understand that Ralph Rangnick is going to write a report and hand it over to the board at the end of the season. So that'll be. I'd love to get my hands on that.
So would I.
um, he Ten Hag, I think, has it came out in the last day or so that he's a big fan of the German model, where the sporting director actually sits on the bench with the first team coach. If that is the case, then we might see Ralf Rangnick working with Ten Hag, as close quarters. So wouldn't be against that idea. We just want to make sure that the likes of Mike Phelan has moved on, and that set pieces coach that has overseen 2 goals and like 152 corners.
Yeah.
Eric Ramsey, I
The
think
other
he's called.
thing, Kyle, of course, is the speculation, and I would see it as positive speculation that Juan Mata might stay in the club as a coach. And Juan Mata has given great service. What is it? 57 goals and 47 assists since he arrived. Never complained, never been any trouble. You can see that he's good on and off the pitch, and that he loves the club. I've heard him interviewed in MUTV. If that happened, we've talked before about the board off the pitch, and there's not enough football men involved at the club. Well, Juan Mata is a genuine football guy, and if he could be in and around those two guys at the top of the management structure, I'd have no disagreement with that at all. He's a positive guy who loves the club.
Yeah, there has been lots of chat about Juan Mata being like a club ambassador, but perhaps he probably would be more useful as a coach. I'm sure he's had plenty of time to do his pro license and stuff because he's not been playing much football this season, which has probably frustrated him. But he hasn't complained one bit. We've seen Rashford made 2 Premier League starts in 11 games, deservedly, but straight after a defeat to Manchester City. He's briefing the press, making it known about how unhappy he is with the situation. Juan Mata has not complained one bit, yeah. So, and he's given some spectacular moments in the post Ferguson era. Not the least is brace at Anfield when the overhead
Never to
kick.
be forgotten. Never to be forgotten.
Oh yeah, the spectacular overhead kick and
Yeah,
the free kick he scored against Juventus in Turin,
beautiful.
um, which has brought about one of those controversial Mourinho moments where he was cupping his ears to the home crowd. Okay, I just want to move on now and talk about the under-18s who are into the FA Youth Final for the first time in over a decade. 2011, I think, was the last time when the team consisted of the likes of Ravel Morrison, Paul Pogba, and Jesse Lingard. The current young players are certainly exciting a lot of the fans. Charlie McNeil and Alejandro Garnacho in particular. How excited are you about the potential for Garnacho to become part of the first team picture in the next couple of years?
Yes, he looks a very skillful player, but he's brave. I notice, and he goes in where it hurts. I saw him score a diving header where it reminded me of the great Dennis Law and years gone by. But he can turn both sides, and he's got great balance, and he relates well to his teammates. And if he gets a good ball, he's the first over to congratulate. He doesn't want his head going because he scored a goal. He wants to involve the other players on the pitch. That's the type of guys we want, people that want to get into the first team, get on the bench, maybe make a debut in Europe or the League Cup, and then establish themselves. He's very, very exciting. And McNeil is a quality finisher. He can score with both feet and the head. So he scored an awful lot of goals to his young career to date.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only problem with McNeil at the moment is probably his physical stature. He's probably not big enough to play in the Premier League at the moment. But obviously, once he fills out and gets more of a kind of a manly body, so to speak, then
That's a
he
good point. But that reminds me of Greenwood. Greenwood was like when I watched him at that age and looked the way he filled out, you know.
yeah,
It can be
absolutely.
done if he's looked after properly and given the opportunity as he will be at Carrington. He should come through in due course, hopefully.
So also, there's a lot of the kind of under 23s who are exciting people. Some of them, of course, are out on loan, like Ethan Laird and James Garner. But some of the ones who are currently playing for under 23s are definitely exciting a lot of the fans. Um, and that would be the likes of Charlie Savage, who we all know is Robbie Savage's son, Zidane Iqbal. Both of them made appearances against young boys in the Champions League. And then the left back, Alvaro Fernandez in particular. So who out of the under 23s would you like to see become part of the first team picture before the end of the season?
Well, definitely Fernandez. If there's a few games to go and it's obvious we're not making the top four, he's good enough from what I've seen. He gets up and down, and he's a strong tackler, and he heads the ball with a lot more confidence than some of our fullbacks that are currently playing. He's very, very good. Savage is better than you would imagine. That he can play balls through with his. He's a left-footed player, and he seems to see people go wide very early and releases the ball early. That's the difference. There's a lot of players in our current first team in midfield that stop it and pass it back or pass it across. Savage is a guy who has the vision and he's astute. And if he brings others into the game quickly, they'll score goals. So those were the two. The goalkeeper is very sound as well. Comes off his line very quickly. Um, that's those are the main ones that I can recall. Yeah.
It's the goalkeeper. It's not Nathan Bishop, is it?
No, Matic. It's a Czech name or
Oh yes, yes. Kovar, yeah.
Kovar. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and what bizarrely, Paul McShane plays with the under 23s. I mean, he was an underage player for United. Must have been 20 years ago, but he's come back to kind of be a half coach, half player with
Yeah,
the team.
yeah.
We remember him fondly as being the man who allowed the ball to reach Thierry Henry in that infamous World Cup qualifier.
Not to be forgotten. Not to be forgotten. Sadly.
Okay, everybody who's joining us, please subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a wee like on the video and comment your thoughts down below. So somebody else I just want to talk about is someone that you're a fan of. He's currently out on loan. Is Brandon Williams at Norwich. Now we've already talked about how neither of us kind of rate the four fullbacks that are currently part of the first team. Would you, based on what you've seen from Brandon Williams this season, would you say that he's a better player than the current left backs at the club?
Yes, I would. Yes, primarily because he closes people down. If you're playing in the back four, you're supposed to cut out the crosses coming in. The goalkeeper always wants crosses cut out, but the centre halves, if they can rely on a fullback getting close, nobody better than Gary Neville. He was never more than a couple of yards away from any winger that he played when he was his peak. He slowed down this last season, obviously, but Brandon Williams is very good carrying the ball too when he goes forward. I saw a goal that he set up an assist in January. He was the Norwich City Player of the Month for January, stepping up to play every week in the Premier League, and
Uh, he carried the ball, went inside and outside, crossed it into the centre forward who knocked it in. I also saw him against Liverpool at Anfield marking Mo Salah, and he did a wonderful, gave a wonderful performance over 90 minutes. Was as close to Salah as I've seen anybody in the games playing Liverpool this season. He's a quality player. I think that the current manager has talked to him and said he will come back and he'll give him a chance. So what more can you do than give him a chance? I think he's worth it, yeah.
Yeah, well, we might as well, give him a chance after he's had, a full season playing in the Premier League, because Luke Shaw has arguably had one good season in 7 years, and Alex Telles is nowhere near good enough to be the regular left back for Man United, despite his obvious qualities from set pieces. But like you said, we need a lot more than that. And Bon Williams, to to have a good game against Mo Salah is really impressive for any player, because Mo Salah is arguably the best player on the planet right now. So that's not to be sniffed at. And we know he has qualities in the final third as well. We'll all remember that goal against Sheffield United. That was a spectacular finish with his right foot.
Yeah, it was absolutely. Yeah, and we know he'll get his yellow cards, but that's because he's physically committed to letting the forward know that he's about and he's not going to have an easy day. That's what you want. You don't want our players, our current fullbacks, just say 5 or 6 yards up, and they give the winger the time to control the ball, look up, and pick out a centre forward. That's not good enough. You need a fullbacks getting close and getting the tackles in.
Yeah, a very amusing moment recently with Bron Williams was when he was rugby tackled by Christian Eriksen, and he was going to throttle a player who rugby tackled him, and he realised it was Eriksen, and he hugged him instead. Obviously,
Very
um,
good.
it was Eriksen, obviously very popular player now in world football, and he's done, not to veer off course here, but he's done really well at Brentford. He seems to be playing a deeper role, spraying the ball left and right, and that's really really uh, helping them in their cause to stay up in the Premier League. And someone who's been scoring plenty of goals for Brentford lately is Ivan Toney. Now, I know I'm going to get some criticism for this, but it's only a suggestion. Um, we're obviously going to be after a younger striker in the summer. Would you possibly see someone like Ivan Toney maybe being an option for us?
I don't know whether I think he's up to the quality which we require. I from what I've seen, I mean, football's all about opinion. Obviously, you rate him. I don't think he's that good myself, but I could be totally wrong. But that's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, the likelihood is the form that he's shown recently, we probably want to see him do that again in the Premier League next season before we start looking at him. He's an amazing penalty taker. He only takes 2 steps and then puts it right into the corner. I think he's arguably one of the best in the world at that.
Well, we certainly need a few penalty takers, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, because our penalty shootout record is absolutely horrible. And, we've seen Fernandes and Ronaldo both miss penalties in games this season. So we've never, and then under Solskjaer, we had Pogba, Martial, and Rashford all deciding amongst themselves who takes penalties, and they're all missing them. It's just been an absolute chaos at our club when it comes to penalties in the last kind of 5 years. It definitely needs to be sorted out. The problem is our best free kick taker and penalty taker is Juan Mata, and he doesn't get a kick these days, and unfortunately, and he's lethal from those set pieces.
He is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I'm hoping next season too that the new management team will cut out the left back taking the corner from the other side of the pitch and then struggling to get back if we lose the ball from the corner. Surely, I could see somebody like Sancho taking corners well enough for people like Ronaldo. I think it has to be a midfielder, a forward taking corners. It doesn't look well at all. And they're so bad, the corners. They don't beat the front man a lot of the time, and then they're struggling to get back, and there's gaps all over the midfield, gaps at left back. We'll have to tighten up on that. Hopefully they'll sort that out, Kai.
Yeah, if the left back has to come right over to take a corner on the right hand side, if we lose possession, he's going to be so far out of position, and he's not going to get back on time, and he's having to obviously cross the width of the pitch as well as get back into his own half. It's something that could cause problems. Different if they were absolutely, Trent takes the corners for Liverpool, I think, and he's absolutely lethal from those positions.
Yeah.
But I
And
don't
he's
think.
got 16 assists, Kyle. That's the difference. The quality is different,
Yeah, he's almost Beckham levels with his crossing
Yeah.
on his corners. Um, Tellez is decent, but he's not as good as that. But it just shows you the lack of ability from dead balls that we have in midfield and forward areas. That both our left backs are taking the corners from both sides. It's pretty
Yeah.
embarrassing, really, isn't it?
It is very, very, very unprofessional. I just can't see how that works at all. They've all week long in training to get that sorted out.
So coming on the Tuesday night's kind of starting 11. So what changes would you make from Saturday on Tuesday? Who would you like to see come into the team, and who would you like to see drop out?
Well, I definitely think that Matic can't play again. He's not fit enough at 33 to play again. So Scotty hopefully will come in there. I wouldn't give Rashford a further chance. Would bring Alanga back in there on the wing. It's a big game to put a young fella in, but Rashford's so out of sorts, I can see no justification at all. Most of us would like to see Lindelof play instead of Maguire, but Lindelof was so poor against Manchester City when he was responsible for 2 of the goals, I think. He'd probably stick with Maguire, even though he took one away for Spurs yesterday. So really, those 2 changes are the only 2 changes I think he'd make.
Yeah, unless he's going to come up with some kind of different system, and he wouldn't know what he'd come up with. I mean, he played Lindelof at right back in the first game, but that didn't
Yeah,
work.
it did
I
not.
wouldn't. I hope he doesn't come up with anything kind of out of the ordinary here. Just kind of hope it is just a couple of changes from the weekend. Yeah, Alanga for Rashford for me, and McTominay obviously should come in for Matic. I've given up any hope of seeing a Varane Lindelof partnership, and in any case, Lindelof is only marginally better than Maguire, so it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter anyway. We need to sign a centre back in the summer. It's absolutely urgent.
Yeah, it's very difficult for Varane, coming with his record and the top level he's playing at. He hasn't got a decent centre half or a fullback on either side. So you have the goalkeeper in your Varane, and the other 3 positions were struggling badly, and it's reflected in the league position. That's why we are where we are, Ken.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting stat that we've been hammered several times this season by like Liverpool, Manchester City, Watford, Leicester, and Varane didn't play in any of those games, and that's pretty telling, isn't it?
No, without a doubt, yeah, yeah,
So when we play in the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea and Arsenal in the remaining games, we want to see Varane in the starting 11 because Arsenal with all these games in hand, I know they're against Liverpool, Chelsea, and Tottenham. Hopefully, they get no points in those games. But the game at the Emirates that we play them on the 23rd of April, I think it is going to be absolutely crucial to who finishes fourth. I would make them firm favourites for that game. Being at home and their performance is a lot better than ours currently. Our defense is absolutely appalling. So I could see us getting turned over there. So it's important that Varane plays. Um, and Ronaldo was obviously going to have to pull us out of a hole in that game as well. So yeah, absolutely crucial that we beat Arsenal. Anything against Liverpool would be a bonus. Chelsea, we done well against Chelsea actually under Michael Carrick at Stamford Bridge, so it's not inconceivable that we could beat them at Old Trafford. But we basically have to get as many points as possible on these last few games. See these 0-0 draws with the teams at the bottom of the table. That just can't happen anymore. We have to be close to perfection in terms of results now. And even at that, we're definitely second best with Arsenal having those 3 games in hand. So at the moment, I would certainly make Arsenal favourites, and we're just kind of relying on favours, really, aren't we?
yes. But the Tuesday night is crucial because if we go out on Tuesday night, the heads will drop, and the people will be thinking about, the players will be thinking about what their future is going to be if a new manager comes in. Maybe they've been coasting along, so it could get really bad between now and the end of the season. But what we want to do, we're here on Sunday night thinking about Tuesday. We know we've agreed that Ronaldo will be primed and up for Tuesday night. He should be showing the example, and they should be following it. Nobody should be shirking on Tuesday night if they don't realise the importance of that fixture. They shouldn't be anywhere near a club of our size.
Yeah, and Atletico have actually improved their form. Going into the first leg, we were all talking about how poor they'd been, and they lost to the team at the bottom of the league, Levante. But they've picked up a few wins of late, um, and João Felix, who scored in the first leg, is definitely in a good run of form. So he's one to watch. He's too quick and nimble, low center of gravity. He's just an absolute nightmare for someone like Harry Maguire, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I'll take him to the cleaners. That's right, without a doubt. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
He and in Spain, they try to help out their teams that are in Europe by the league game before the Champions League tie. The Spanish teams play on a Friday night. I think it happens
Yes,
in
I
Germany.
noticed that. Yeah, yeah. They won that game 3-1, didn't they? Yeah,
2-1, yeah.
2-1 was it? Yeah.
In Germany and Italy and France, I think they do the same thing, but the Premier League don't really care about their teams playing in the Champions League. As we've seen before the first leg, we played on a Sunday, and that shouldn't have happened. But yeah, it's actually our last game until April, which is very, very strange. So some people might joke and say it's a good thing because United have been nothing only giving us misery in the last few months. So a break from United would be a good thing. But I think we're going to be pretty bored, aren't we? We do look forward to a game every Saturday and the Champions League games in midweek. Without that for about 3 weeks now, it's going to be a bit dull, isn't it?
It is, especially if we get the win I'm hoping for on Tuesday night. That'll be 2 consecutive wins, which hasn't happened too often under Ranić. And it gives Arsenal the time. They're already ahead of us in fourth place now and still have games in hand. By the time we play our next league match in April, they could have played a few games and could be well ahead of us. So there's the psychology of that. It's be interesting to see how that works out. But the games that Arsenal have in hand are difficult games. I mean, they're no gimmies. So let's see how good they are. But the thing, you've mentioned it before in podcast about Arteta. Arteta has dealt with a difficult situation and got rid of players that were causing him trouble. Wasn't easy to do, but you can see how he's brought his young players in and they're adapting. That's today's win was their 5th win in a row. So they're on an absolute roll. So we need a 2nd win in a row on Tuesday night and keep everybody fit and be ready to go. Circumstances means it's not to the 3rd of April, but everybody has to be ready, and hopefully everybody's over COVID, etc., and everybody's raring to go to give the last 8 games their all to try to get into the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, we could only dream of winning 5 games in a row these days. If we could get through on Tuesday night, it'd at least give us a bit of joy and something to look forward to. We'll all be glued to the draw on Friday if we get through. But it'll be a long, long 3 weeks if we go out of the Champions League on Tuesday night, won't it?
Very, very long and very think of Roy Keane's comment when he was analysing yesterday about the magnificence of Ronaldo, and we know he's possibly the world's greatest ever player. Certainly, he's got the most goals. Roy was making the point that he was angry and he was out to prove a point, which you said at the start of the podcast. We want more players in there. We were coming off an absolute thrashing by Manchester City. Now they've got a win against Spurs because of Ronaldo's brilliance. Let some of them step up to the mark on Tuesday night and prove that they're worth their big salaries.
Yeah, but the only players that I reckon will really step up for us will be the likes of Sancho and Ronaldo. I don't have really much faith in anyone else. Fred very rarely has 2 good performances in a row, so I think that's what we're relying on. And hopefully Varane will help us, not be too ropey at the back on Tuesday night. But I mean, with the players around him, it's going to be very difficult to keep a clean sheet. I suppose the only saving grace in terms of conceding goals is the fact that the away goal rule doesn't apply anymore. Because I mean, if Atletico scored twice, it would in normal circumstances that would mean tie over. We'd be done then. But we'd only have to. We could still recover from that because I think if they scored twice, we would have to score 3 times, wouldn't we, to get through? But this time, if it was a 2 each draw, it would go to extra time penalties.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of penalty shootouts now in Europe with the way it goes through leaving, and you would not be surprised to see it. on Tuesday night, and that would be horrible for us because our penalty record is absolutely shocking. I mean, it must be worse than England's.
If that's possible. Well, Ranić needs to get them all taking penalties. Uh, Monday will be a full training day, I would imagine, and that has to be concentrated on. You like to think you're positive that you'll go out and win the game on the basis of merit in 90 minutes or possibly 120, but for goodness sake, get it organised, who's taking what penalty, and let them have enough practice at it so they can't say they're thrown in at the deep end.
Yeah, I think if we were going to go through in the 90 minutes, I think Sancho, Ronaldo, and Pogba are all going to have to be on it and all playing, given 9 out of 10 performances. If that is the case, that'll give us a real chance of getting through as long as the defence isn't absolutely all over the place. But I do think we'll concede. It's just a case of will we take our chances, because in recent weeks, we've been a bit blunt in front of goal, not taking our chances. But Ronaldo was lethal at the weekend, so hopefully he can repeat a similar performance. He actually has another hat-trick stat, is that he has a couple of hat-tricks against Atletico as well. He has 25 goals against them and 9 assists or something. So he certainly has a great record against them, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he got
Well,
at
that's
least.
good news, but we need the quality of service. We've always thought he would score goals for us, and if Sancho's raising his game now and delivering the quality that he did yesterday, that's a great hope we have. Good service into Ronaldo, and hopefully he's on his game and he'll bury them.
Yeah, so we're at least going into the game with a bit of hope, because if we had lost against Spurs, we'll be thinking that we have absolutely no form going into this important Champions League tie, so we wouldn't be anticipating anything positive happening. But now we've got to win. We're thinking, and we're going into this game on a bit of a high, so and confidence will be restored a wee bit after the City debacle. So I'm quietly confident that we can win this, but I'm obviously not thinking that we're definitely going to win. So I think it'll be close. There'll be goals in it, and I'm hoping that it'll be a 2-1 win for United. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was the opposite scoreline and 2-1 to Atletico. But we live in hope.
Yeah, well, they'll have seen the coverage in Spain of Ronaldo at his brilliant best, so hopefully psychologically that'll.
Yeah, I mean, Simeone has said in the past that he would have won 2 Champions Leagues by now as a manager if it wasn't for Cristiano Ronaldo. So he knows only too well of the threat that he poses. So we've certainly given him a big build up, and hopefully he can deliver for us on Tuesday night. He's like me and you and lots of United fans have been critical of Ronaldo in recent months, but he's always got that ability to make everybody look stupid, and because uh, even though he's 37, he's still got that brilliance in his locker. He's not going to produce it as consistently as he used to, but he is capable of doing what he did at the weekend, and hopefully he does it again on Tuesday night. So we'll wrap it up there. Please, everybody, subscribe to the podcast, give us a wee like in the video, and comment your predictions for the game down below. And I'll see you on Tuesday night then, Nigel.